Joining me now, first class father Ben Askren. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
What's up? Happy to be here.
Well, pleasure to have you here. Let's start like this. How many kids do you have? How old are they?
I got 3 kids. I was just working outside with them. With 2 of them. One's at my mom's right now. I have a 5-year-old son and I have a 7 and 10-year-old daughter.
Very cool. If you could, Ben, just take a second to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah. Well, I guess I started my life by I did a lot of sports, but then I went into wrestling. I wrestled at the University of Missouri, 2-time Mid-State champion. Went to the Olympics in 2008, where I made the transition into mixed martial arts. So I fought there for about a decade. I won belts and one championship in Bellator. In that same time period, I also started. My brother and I started Askren wrestling academies, and currently we have 6 wrestling academies in Wisconsin, and it's going really well.
Incredible, man. Love the hustle. And so take me back then, if you could, to the beginning of your fatherhood journey. About how old were you then when you first became a dad? How did that change your perspective on life?
You know what? Everyone says that, but I feel like I had a pretty good, well-rounded perspective on life. So I don't think it necessarily changed at all. With the wrestling academies, I've been dealing with not young kids, but kids. So I kind of have an understanding of how they work and how to deal with them. But I had my first kid. I would have been 29, turning 30 that year. That was Alex, and yeah, it was great. You know what? I don't really enjoy the 0 to 9, 12 months. I think that's kind of boring. Moms like that. My wife loves it. I think it's kind of boring. And then, once they get a little older, and they start walking and talking, interacting, I think that's when it becomes a lot of fun.
Yeah, once they can start having a conversation, or you can start throwing the ball with them, or start interacting with them, it starts to become on a different level. But where were you at in your career as far as when you first became a dad, and how did that kind of how did the balance and all that stuff work out?
Yeah. Well, luckily, I was at a point where I was having a lot of success, and my wife didn't work. So, when our kids didn't sleep or whatever, I could get some extra sleep or sleep during the day, or, something to that effect. Can you stop that? And then, by this time, second kid, Andy was really easy as a baby, slept all the time, no problems. And then our third one, thank God, I had just retired. So I retired my first time in November of 20. I retired November 24, 2017, and then we had Ozzy on December 8th, 2017. So 2 weeks after retirement. So I planned that one perfectly because this dude didn't sleep. He was awful, and that made life a lot harder at that point. But luckily, I wasn't competing still.
Yeah, we have 4 kids, and going from 2 to 3 was our most challenging time. Our third one was our child that didn't sleep, and he gave us a run for our money. So we were right there with that. What would you consider, Ben, to be the top values that you hope to instill in all your kids growing up?
Yeah, that's good. I think there should be a healthy balance of values. The ones so me and my wife have come from very different backgrounds, and so we have similar values, but kind of a little bit. I think we would rank order them a little bit differently. So one of my top ones, and for my family would be work ethic, and that's I still hold that in very high esteem. And then my wife, I think she would say how well you treat other people, and as probably a number one value. And because I'm a little bit autistic, I miss on that one sometimes. Not just because I want to be mean, but just sometimes I just don't think about it, right? I'm thinking about doing things or getting something done, and maybe it leads to maybe a poor or negative interaction with someone, and I might not even recognize it, right? It should be like, hey, Ben, you were kind of a butthole earlier. And I'm like, I wasn't even I was thinking about something else. I was thinking about going to get something done.
Well, I know. Well, you mentioned your wife, Amy. There, I got to bring this up just because it went really viral there on Twitter when you put out this tweet, and I'll put it on the board here. I'll cut to it, but when you put this out, I've seen some guys posting on social media lately about how they are winning because their wife is attractive. While I don't disagree, I think finding a wife who is a great mother is 500% more important. Thanks, Amy, for being such a great mom to our kids. Now, it seemed like people took this completely the wrong way and started accusing you of calling your wife not pretty or something like that. What was your take on this thing?
Even when you just read that back to me, I don't understand where people missed on that, because the literal point of the message, was that attractiveness should not be the number one component. So by root of that, I don't even mention her level of attractiveness, right? Because that was the point of the tweet. Maybe it's a little bit, and I acknowledge it's a little bit important, but I don't even mention that about her because that was not the point of the tweet. So, I think people on social media sometimes can be malicious or, probably maybe take the worst possible angle on the tweet. But I think anyone who is smart and anyone who had good intentions understands what I was talking about.
I got what you were talking about, just because, I talk about it myself, just saying how we live in this era where everything is social media, everything is the dating app. And so you're judging people only by the way that they look, and that's it. And we think that that's the only thing that involved in dating, when if you don't have these discussions about finding out, hey, because my wife stayed at home with our kids too. But it's like, that's a conversation we had before we had kids. Like, if these aren't things that you have conversations about and figure out beforehand, they're going to create nightmares for you later on. But we live in this society, it just seems like, and your post, I think, is on point, because it seems like that's the only thing that matters. We see The Bachelor, Bachelor in Paradise. We saw all these shows, and the only thing they ever make it about.
I rage on those shows.
I've had a bunch of those guys on the show here. I've had a lot of the Bachelors on the podcast. Some of them are
the worst shows ever.
Some of those guys are great guys.
My wife wants to be involved in the interview, apparently. The Bachelor.
Oh, Bachelor's great.
Like, I've had Sean Lowe. He came on the podcast here. Jason Mesnick, the guy with the kid.
Oh God, the interview's being hijacked.
Ben actually likes Sean Lowe.
Well, why do I like
Sean Lowe? I love Sean Lowe.
Sean Lowe's I thought he's a great guy.
Lowe.
Oh yeah, I did. I met him. Yeah, sure, he's nice.
Yeah, some of those guys are. Hi, Amy. But like I said, I agree with the point you made in the post. What did Amy think of the post? Was she offended by it? Get her in here. What happened?
Since you're interrupting.
I got it. I could see how someone could misunderstand it, which was hilarious. But
all right,
it was like, Ben doesn't normally make public like complimentary posts like that, and the first time he tried,
he got buried.
I crushed it. All right, guys.
Well,
so usually I have a podcast studio in my basement, but we had an issue. We had a water leakage issue, and we tore it up, and then we finally just refinished it. And so everything is being finished down there now. So I don't have my office down there to be in. That's why I'm getting hijacked.
Ben, I'm in my bedroom closet here, so it don't matter where you are. It don't matter to me.
Oh, it's good though. You got a nice background. I'm digging this background you got going on.
Yeah, it's just some of the guys that have been on the show here, so I try to promote while I'm, podcasting here as well.
Please.
Making it up as I go along. But let me get back into you as a father here for a second here, Ben. One thing I'm definitely different with is the way I have 3 boys and a girl, and my discipline style is definitely different with my daughter than it is with my sons. And I wanted to say, what kind of disciplinarian are you as a dad, and is that different than the discipline style you grew up with?
I guess I would say probably yes. My dad was blue collar, tougher disciplinarian, and I think my wife, I raise my voice once in a while because it just captures their attention and it makes them hear and understand what I'm saying a little more clearly. And that's as with anything, when someone raises their voice, everyone all of a sudden tunes in, right? Because they think, oh, something must be happening. I need to listen to. But no, I think we just try to hold the values and try to be, I think one of the things, and this is, I guess I would get this from wrestling. One of the things that I think parents struggle with and coaches struggle with is if you're led by your own emotions, then you're maybe not going to express the values that you expect as clearly as necessary. So you need to try to hold yourself at a balanced emotional state while we're giving discipline. And the discipline needs to be very expected. What the expectations are. And then there's a clear, either you met the expectations or you didn't meet the expectations. So I think that's kind of the best way to do it.
And sometimes a lot easier said than done. I know just from having teenagers in the house, sometimes I catch myself and I'll be like, oh my God, I'm having this emotional reaction to it. And it's like, I've interviewed guys like Jocko Willink has been on the show, and it's like, he's a guy that just just breathes discipline. Like, it seems like he never gets mad at anything, almost, in a sense. Like, he could stay calm in any situation. And I find myself struggling sometimes to do that. And I try to bring myself back to reality and be like, okay, wait a minute. This kid's 15 and I'm trying to hit him with like a real deep philosophical answer and going on a rant.
I
I
don't know.
catch
I think you
myself.
can understand by that age.
Yeah,
I think so. I mean,
I think so too. I think sometimes too, I try to get, I come at them from where I am right now and don't get into where they are at the moment. Like, I
oh,
try to think
sure.
back to when I was 15 years old. My mindset was
Yeah.
completely different than it is now.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, from coaching athletes also, and I know my oldest at 10. I know I speak to her in ways that are maybe above her head, but it's like I'm having an expectation that she is going to understand that in due time, and that, you know, the more she starts hearing it, the easier she's going to take to it when it hits. You know, when she gets that level of intellect, and you know, because that's at the end of the day, you want to be able to examine everything at an intellectual and logical level and say, here is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Right? I always hate it. And my dad did this maybe sometimes, not a ton, but I know whenever a wrestling coach did this, I'm like, I don't want this guy to be my wrestling coach. Do it because I said that's what should be done, you know? And it's like, dude, that's annoying AF. It's like, tell me why. Like, tell me why I should do this thing or do it that way, because I think this way is better. And if you can't logically explain to me why this way is superior, then maybe I should do it my own way. Maybe you don't really understand the subject matter as well as possible, right? And so then you extrapolate that to being a parent. I want to be able to say from an intellectual and logical standpoint why I think this is the best way for my daughter or my son to behave. And that's it.
Yeah, I get that pushback with them, like something as simple as doing the dishes. Like, they don't like, you don't have to like it, you just have to do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this has to be done, and you're the one doing it. So it's sometimes,
Yeah.
but you still get the attitude that comes along with that. What about as far as obviously you spent your whole career wrestling, fighting, mixed martial arts, the whole bit. Are your kids involved in? Are you getting them started young into that? Is that something that they're interested in? And what are their like
No.
opinions of your career and what you do?
We don't talk a lot about what I do. I mean, I think they know. I mean, my oldest daughter's 10. I think she understands by now a little bit, maybe not fully. But I would say, so for we have them to do all athletics. So they play everything. And my rule with my kids is that they have to do all the things until they're 10, and then they can start like picking and choosing what they want, you know? And so my oldest daughter is 10, and right now she likes wrestling, gymnastics, and soccer. So that's what she does. And you know, the other two are too young, but so they do, you know, Ozzy does t-ball and soccer and gymnastics and wrestling, and Andy does wrestling and soccer and gymnastics. I don't think there's anything else for her right
Do
now.
you coach the kids at all, or you step back and watch it more from the sideline?
And wrestling I do, and in soccer I, you know, no, all the other sports I just go watch. And you know, in those sports I don't ever try to coach them from a technical perspective. And you know, at 5, it's Ozzy, I'm not coaching anything. I'm just saying you need to listen to your coach and pay attention. And those are the expectations, right? But like with Alex, you know, she's at 10 now. I've had to make a few points where I thought her effort level was below expectation, you know, in other sports, right? And it's like, this is non-negotiable. You are going to put out a high level of effort, and if you don't, then there's going to be consequences, right? Luckily she's responded, so we haven't gotten to what the consequences would be, you know, because then I guess I'd have to figure out what those are. But just a high level of effort is expected. You will do that, and because that's how you're going to be successful. So, you know, there's been a few games where she's had kind of a, you know, lackadaisical. It's like, no, that's not acceptable.
Well, let me get your take on what happened here recently with the UFC with Israel Alessandro when he fought with just recently against Alex there, and he did the thing in the ring where he mocked his son for falling down.
Oh my God, yeah.
What is your I know, just as a father, he's a father. Israel is not a dad, he doesn't have kids, but he did this, and it was kind of got feedback from both sides. He taught the kid a lesson. People saying he shouldn't have done it. What's your take on what happened there?
Yeah, I would say he is very immature and needs to grow up. Because I think so. If there'd be one thing if he did it just to be haha, be funny, but I think he did it out of a level of malice and bitterness towards the kid, and the kid was like 6. They don't know what they're doing at that point in time, right? I mean, the kid was like, if you look back the old video, right, the kid was really small in the old video. Yeah, so no, bitterness and malice are very negative components and characteristics of an adult, and that's something like I actually talk about this a lot in wrestling is like using a chip on your shoulder as motivation, which like this would be a great example, right? It's great motivation, I feel like, until you're like 17, 18, 19, like somewhere in there. And then at some point you got to be an adult. And if you continue your whole life with chips on your shoulder, you're not going to lead a happy existence. So yeah, at some point I do feel like it is time to get rid of that type of behavior. And I believe he's in his early to mid 30s, so he probably needs to be done with that. But he does seem to have a lot of that, and maybe I guess the argument could be because he's still an active competitor, and because that is a way that he does get motivated. Maybe he could argue that's effective, but at some point he will be done, and then that stuff only makes your life negative.
Yeah, well said. I think too. I just think that coming from it, the fact that I think if he was a dad himself or had kids, he may have reacted differently. Yeah. Obviously, it must have really bothered him to the core because he was still real fresh right after the fight happened. He just won this fight. He regained the title, and that's the first thing he thought of. So it must have really been deep down bothering him in his core.
Yeah, for real.
So what's going on with you now here, Ben? I know you said you do the podcast. What's coming up next for you? You got any projects? What are you working on? What's coming up?
Nope. I just I run on wrestling academies. We're kicking butt and taking names. We're growing very quickly. And then I just been podcasting, and eventually I think I'll get to the point where I'm doing just the wrestling academies, and that's it, because that kind of is my passion. So yeah, that's it.
Is there anybody you come back into the ring to fight? Anybody out there that would be the one to say, "Hey, I'm coming back"?
The only one I would already retired, so no, I would not.
All right. Well, last thing I want to hit you with here, Ben. I love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about to be father who's out there listening?
Yeah, I would say be patient. Be ready to have patience, right? I mean, that would, I think, be the one thing, because sometimes, I'm very impatient, and in lots of things in life, patience isn't all that necessary, right? I would actually argue that in a lot of fields, people have too much patience. They just, kind of push. That, I know that's true with wrestling and fighting. I can say those are true. Once in a while, you got to have patience, but it's not like a paramount characteristic. Whereas in parenting, you're going to have to be patient. Especially when they're young, there's just things they're not going to get. There's things you're going to do, and you need to have patience with them. And that's, like I said, one thing that maybe you don't have in other parts of your life, but you need it as a dad.
Yeah, very well said. Love the message. This has been a lot of fun for me. I got to say, Ben Askren, you're a first-class father all the way, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here at First Class Fatherhood.
All right, have a great day.